Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, September 7th, LA Galaxy. Getting ready to take on St. Louis City on Sunday. That's one of those game-in-hand games. Very important for the LA Galaxy. Could close the gap considerably on making that playoff line. We have a lot of stats coming your way. We're going to talk about Efrain Alvarez and his imminent transfer to Xolos. We're going to talk about Dejan Joveljic. We've got a bunch of stuff to get you ready for before we even get to the St. Louis game. So we've got a lot of stuff to get to, including being joined by new LA Galaxy president. We'll figure out the exact title for business operations and all that fun stuff. Tom Braun should be about 7 minutes away. So we got a lot to get to, a lot of fun things to talk about. Helping me do all that, we're glad to have him back. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, bud?
It's going all right. We've extended the unbeaten streak, and we're still in 13th place.
Yes.
So how does this keep happening? How do they keep getting away with this? We keep doing better, putting in good performances,
right.
And we're still in 13th place.
13th.
I don't know what to do with myself.
I mentioned on Monday that I talked to somebody who was within the organization, and they were laughing because they were listening to what they weren't laughing so much. They were laughing at how I sort of put it, which was the exact same thing, which was how bad were the Galaxy to start the season? They have to climb. It's like they're climbing out of this hole, and the hole is so deep that they've been climbing up. They've been doing a really good job climbing out. Like one of the hottest teams in Major League Soccer. We've talked about that a bunch. One of the hottest teams in Major League Soccer still in 13th place. 20 Crazy. Points since the and it might be even more now. It might be, I think it's 21 points. 21 points since Chris Klein was relieved of his duties, and the LA Galaxy are still in 13th place because they had 9 points or 8 points before that. They're at 29 points now, right? So all these things sort of coming. Yeah, it's a long way. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, hanging in there. It's hot, still getting excessive heat warnings in these parts. How's the weather in your neck of the woods?
It's supposed to get warm again over the weekend and that type of thing. So Sunday actually will probably be really nice. You know how it is in Carson, in the evenings at 5. It's like maybe it starts at 78, 80, but by the time kickoff comes around, it's 75, and it's nice. One of those summer nights, type of thing. Yeah,
I'm telling you, I missed that because it dropped to 91. And we were like, man, this is brisk. It's cold in here. 91. What's that like? So definitely having feelings missing Southern California this time of year.
Well, let's get to the LA Galaxy here because we don't have a ton of time before we're joined by Tom Braun. LA Galaxy announced on Wednesday the sort of reorganization, something that I think we have looked at and sort of said this might be a solution for the LA Galaxy. The official announcement came, basically AEG moved Tom Braun, who had one of the longest titles ever as a senior vice president. I actually wrote it down. I still have it here just so I can ask him about it whenever it comes on. Now he gets a one that I think I can produce. He's promoted to president of business operations and chief operating officer. You have, I think it's Urel Martinez. Or it's Uriel Martinez.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Chief Revenue Officer, right? And then Will Misselbrook, we've talked about, Chief Creative and Brand Officer. So that is your new LA Galaxy executive leadership team. Now, the important thing to note here is it says President of business operations. And so if we go over to the soccer operations, the person who's still in charge of that right now is Greg Vanney, head coach and sporting director for the LA Galaxy, right? So we're looking at the pyramid, we're understanding where everybody falls, right? It's basically Tom Braun, and then it's Greg Vanney. And they're at the same level, and they both report directly to Dan Beckerman. So in a way, as we were sort of predicting, Greg Vanney is very much a co-president in this, being he's at the same level as Tom Braun. He may not get the president moniker on that, but in terms of his decision-making and things that happen on the soccer operations side of things, that is where the LA Galaxy and AEG have sort of put everything. I see a lot of people who are like, well, where does this put this person? And everything really stayed the same. I don't think there's really this whole giant movement that everybody thinks there is. Is it confusing, though, just on its face because they're splitting the two, Eric?
I think as much as we've been talking about the situation, given the issues that have been popping up over the last couple of seasons, it's not confusing to me because we were saying having it all fall on one person almost felt like too much. We were kind of almost calling for the delineation of responsibility. Does people who are being hailed for their business acumen and what they're able to bring in terms of sponsorships, and then that kind of, a flip-flopping and going back and forth with the player personnel side. So it almost makes more sense to me to you have a business side president, right, and then you have a soccer side president, and it makes sense that the coaches involve that. And I think that makes a pretty clear delineation. At the end of the day, you still need someone who's the president, who's going to be making those decisions as chief operating officer, COO, and I think Tom Braun lands there. So it's funny you mentioned Vanney and Braun kind of equal, but I think Braun probably has, if he's on his tiptoes, probably one more step above that with the actual president in his title. I think that gives a delineation that he is, the top of the food chain. But I think the fact that it's specifically business operations and then you have all the player personnel piece, I think that's a good thing. That's what we want, right? We want to be able to, figure out who's taking care of the business side, because maybe you don't always have that best match. Maybe it's not the person can do both. What is it? A master of none. You want to make sure that right, the person is really good at their lane and able to handle that. And then you leave, hire the best people, surround yourself with the best people to get yourself in a good situation. So to me, it makes sense. I'm pleased with kind of the way they explained it and the way it's set up, which you've kind of mentioned it. I don't know that much has changed given the dismissal. I think, there wasn't necessarily new blood that came in.
Yeah, and there isn't, right? And that's probably one of the biggest criticisms. We can ask Tom about that. Andrew, by the way, gave us a $5 super chat, said they mentioned in the supporter meeting that they are going back to the way they did things when they were successful, right? So the LA Galaxy. Now, Bruce, whenever he was successful, we talk about this all the time, but Bruce really did have a hand in everything, right? So you're talking about a guy who constantly, even on business side, even on sporting side, however he was, Bruce was always around. Even if he didn't make the decision, he knew the decision was being made, and he trusted the person to do that. My friend Chris Tucker talks about how Bruce once came out and timed the smoke to see how fast the smoke would dissipate over at LA Riot Squad, and Bruce was out there with a stopwatch. Just in case you didn't think Bruce had his fingers and everything, he was the one who was out there with the stopwatch. Started his stopwatch, the smoke went off, stopped his stopwatch, looked at it, turned around, and walked back in. That was it. That was classic Bruce Arena. Interesting stuff going on with Bruce too. So we'll figure out all that stuff whenever that breaks too. All right, I'm gonna attempt very carefully here to.
Are you gonna push the right buttons?
See, you have to hit the right button. And then once you hit the right button, you have to hit the other button. So if I did all of that correctly, I believe now joining us is the LA Galaxy's new president of business operations and the COO, Mr. Tom Braun. Tom, are you there?
Oh, for having me.
Oh, there we say that again. Do your intro again, Tom. I hit the mute button. I almost got all the buttons right.
Okay, almost got it. Hey guys, good to connect. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Tom, this is a return to the podcast. You and I had a little chat whenever you were out dedicating the fields. I think it was out in Torrance or I can't remember exactly where it was, but we did a live podcast out there and you came on the show.
Yeah, we did. It was Torrance. It was just the LA Galaxy Sports Park over in across the street from LA Galaxy Soccer Center. So good to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Well, congratulations. I know it's probably been a pretty big week for you. I imagine that this wasn't a surprise whenever they made the announcement. So you've probably been settling in for a little while. But I'd love to hear your thoughts just on sort of what it means to be in this position now. You're now the president of business operations for the LA Galaxy, and maybe a little bit about your journey to get here.
Yeah, it's an honor. It's an honor to be a part of this club. It's an honor to be a part of this company and with this team. I'm very, very privileged to be here and very thankful. And got a great team around me. So it's been quite a journey. I've been with the club or with AEG about 10 years now, mostly in business operations roles, but have done quite a bit in data and analytics and finance. And 10 years and happy to be here. Very honored.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have spoken very highly of you. Like I said, we've had the pleasure of meeting, and I only have nice things to say. I'd love to sort of pick your brain a little bit. Obviously, this is a change in terms of splitting things, right? And having the business operation side and having the soccer operation side. Why this split, and why do you think there's a benefit to it?
Yeah, it's not new to us. We've had this split before. We've had it back when Bruce Arena was here, so it's nothing new to us, and we're used to it. And I think it's an important split. I mean, it takes a certain type of individual who has the knowledge and the know-how to manage both of them, and it's a pretty unique responsibility. It's a really heavy lift and a really heavy responsibility. So we think it's the right move, and separating it with Greg Vanny overseeing the soccer operations and myself overseeing the business operations, and really collaborating and making sure we're doing everything we can to push this club to new levels.
My big question about all that is, it sounds great, very, very collaborative, and everybody's working together. Eventually, and sometime I would imagine in the near future, there comes a decision that affects both sides of this, right? Because it's very difficult to just keep a straight line, and you can't just paint a white line down the middle of the room and be like, that's your side, that's my side. Eventually, there comes decisions maybe on big players, how it affects business, how it affects operations. Maybe there's a difference of opinion. How did the disputes get resolved there? I doubt you guys are playing rock, paper, scissors.
No, not playing rock, paper, scissors. I think the way that my role plays into it is I can deliver the information to the individuals who are trying to make player decisions. And my job is not to make player decisions in any way, but if there's an overlap, and I think kind of what you're getting at is there's an overlap when it comes to finance, for example, and then understanding just how player acquisitions, big time player acquisitions, designated players could impact budgets. So our responsibility on the business side is at least through finance and is really to deliver the information back for Greg and his team to make intelligent decisions on who they're acquiring.
Hi, Tom. This is Eric Vieira here. So first off, I want to congratulate you on your new role in the organization. And
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I kind of want to address the elephant in the room. Given the start of the season, and there appearing to be a little bit of a loss of trust from the fan base with their disappointment in the front office, what plans or vision do you have in place from the business side on how you can mend some of those relationships with the fan base moving forward?
Yeah, I think it starts with our leadership team. I think we have a really, really strong leadership team with Uriel Martinez. He's our new chief revenue officer, him working alongside of AG Global Partnerships and Karen Goodhart and Josh Bayu to pushing that team forward. I think is a really important part of it. Will Misselbrook coming up with new creative brand strategies for us and really leaning into how we're delivering our content to our fans. I think these individuals, along with Katie, who runs our building as a general manager at Dean Hill Sports Park, we're really motivated to deliver the best fan experience to our fans, right? We understand that everybody has limited discretionary spending. We want them to enjoy their experience with us, right? They want to come to a game. We want them to come back to more games. We want to have such a good time and their experience to be so good that they want to be with us, right? So we understand and don't take that for granted. And oftentimes it's through the fan experience. Oftentimes it's through exciting soccer. So we kind of look at it holistically, and we make really good decisions, or attempting to make really good decisions by, seeing what our fans are interested in, listening to them, and delivering back to them what we think they want and what we know they want through some of our education and experience.
Tom, one of the big complaints I hear a lot, obviously, is about the season ticket memberships and maybe how they've lost some of their value in terms of what resale is going for, what season ticket memberships are going for. How do you address that? Because under the previous administration, it used to be, hey, your seat is your benefit. And I always thought that was maybe, I understood where it was coming from, but it seemed like that wasn't the full story.
Yeah, and maybe I neglected to mention one thing that on the last point is we also just launched the fan council, which I think is a really important thing to touch on for us. Listening to our fans through our fan council, I believe we have about 15 fans that are going to be selected, and we've had hundreds of fans reach out to us with interest in being on the fan council, and I think it's going to be a really, really unique way for us. I think it's one of the first in sports, or how we're doing is a bit unique from what other teams are doing. And so I think that's another way to do it. And touching on your other question, remind me, Josh, maybe tell me that one more time.
Yeah, it's just the season ticket memberships, right? And the cost
benefits.
of how much,
Yeah.
and what the benefits are and all that
benefits.
stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. See, I don't think, no, your seat's not your benefit, right? There's a whole list of benefits that we offer to our fans. We understand the value of a season ticket member and what they mean to us, what they mean to the atmosphere and the overall experience at the stadium. And there's a whole list of benefits that come with being a season ticket member, from Apple MLS Season Pass, the team store discounts, concession store stand discounts, our program where we provide seats to away games. So I think our benefits are as competitive, if not more competitive, than anything you're going to get in the market with any other team, if you were to be a season ticket member.
Yeah, obviously this is more a sporting side thing, but eventually I guess the hope would be that the Galaxy are more competitive and therefore drawing a higher price, and therefore the season ticket memberships are more valuable on that alone, because I know there's a lot of coupons you guys run, a lot of little different things that go out there that really do seem to feel like they're undercutting a lot of the season ticket members.
Yeah, I don't think there's any intention of undercutting season ticket members. And our number one priority, myself and along with our team, is we need to fill the building every single game. We need to make sure that building is full with as many fans as possible, because that's going to have the real impact on not only their experience, but also the impact on the team on the field. We want our guys playing in front of a sold-out building every single game. So coming into this, our leadership group is fully focused on whatever it's going to take to make sure that that building is full as much as possible every game.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I think that's kind of where there is that crossover and how the business operations can affect the on-field product. So what opportunities do you see on the business side that maybe the Galaxy haven't done in the past that you see as an opportunity where maybe they can positively impact the product that's on the field or the business in general?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can revisit and things we're looking towards. We look towards opportunities upgrading our stadium and how can we deliver a meaningful experience. Our stadium is 20 years old. Understandable that that's not that old, but in stadium years it is a bit old, right? And there's areas that we need to improve upon. So we're actively analyzing every aspect of our building and understanding, where do we need to improve upon to make sure that we're delivering. So that's one area, I think. And for us too, we're trying to develop innovative strategies through on the business side, and enhancing our data and analytics strategy, and how can we tap into different audiences that we maybe didn't tap into before. But it all comes down to getting the fans in the building, giving them a good experience, and really servicing them so they want to come back.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's one of the big things. I was going to ask you about stadium upgrades and everything else. You are in a super competitive market in terms of all the new soccer-specific stadiums that are opening up. Every time a new one opens up, you guys are put under pressure. I know that there's been big investment throughout the life of Dignity Health Sports Park, but what are some of the things you see coming down the lane that are going to be important to that?
Yep. Yeah. So our building's 20 years old. I would still put our building up against many buildings, if not all the buildings in the league. I love our building. I think Dignity Health Sports Park is a special stadium and a special place to play soccer and be a part of. We're evaluating. We're seeing what makes sense. So we just rolled out Galaxy Park. I know that that's not necessarily a game day experience, but it is a game day experience in some ways, where we're activated, where the fans can come and they can be a part of it pregame. I think that was a really unique, innovative way to expand our footprint, so to speak, in the community. So that's one way we looked at it, but we're looking at other ways. I think our premium could use an upgrade in certain areas. It's been a little while since we've invested in it. So we're taking a look, we're analyzing it, and hopefully that we can come back soon with a real built out plan that we can get some buy-in.
Perfect. So outside of the building, and I think the chat is pretty excited about, the fact that emphasizing the stadium and upgrades is something that's exciting. But something maybe outside of that, you were credited in the press release to designing and launching the Coachella Valley Invitational. We've heard the possibility of expanding that and possibly adding other forms of entertainment into the mix. How much of that is a reality, and something like that? What are the plans for that moving forward? Because that's something that had a lot of positive buzz, in the preseason. So is that something that you guys are looking into, kind of expanding that particular Coachella Valley Invitational?
Yeah, so we had, I believe, 12 teams last year, 12 MLS teams in our second year, which I'm really proud of. It's something that our company owns and operates about 1,000 acres of grassland in Coachella Valley, same footprint as the Coachella Music and Arts Festival, Stagecoach, big festivals. And it wasn't too long ago that we came up with this idea of why can't we create a MLS preseason in the desert? It's February, it's vacation location. And its temperature is great. So you get a lot of cold weather teams looking to train. And every single year we get inbounds looking for field space in games. So we thought, how can we make this turnkey? How can we deliver an experience to not only the teams, but can we do it in a way that fans would really be interested in going to it? So we launched it in the first year. I think we had 5 or 6 teams. Turned out to be really successful on a team side. Weren't able to open up to fans because of, at that point, COVID was a little bit back and forth. But opening it up this past year, had, I believe, 12 teams, and we are launching it and rolling it out again next year with hopefully expanded into more teams. So we're in the process of having those conversations with the teams, locking them in and moving forward. So hopefully in the next couple months we can roll out some more information, a schedule, but it is absolutely full steam ahead with Coachella Valley Invitational.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much money do you have to pay if you want to call it Coachella, though? That's
we're sitting on a gold mine there.
I feel like I know all the behind the scenes on that. I know we're not allowed to call it that, but at the same time, it feels like that would be an obvious move if it was me. So.
It's a good name. It's a good name. I'll give you that. It's a good name.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 more things, and one of the things, fans are always talking about concession prices, especially beer prices. I know it's often a very good PR move whenever the beer prices come down at games. What can you guys do for this? The concession prices seem like they shoot up every single year.
You can be a season ticket member. You get a 15% discount on concessions if you're a season ticket member.
Always be selling. I know. I know how that works. No, absolutely. But I mean, it's expensive to go to games, is it not?
Yeah, I think it's. I think compared to the other stadiums in LA, I think we are moderately priced.
Right. Okay. And then, sort of looking at everything, I know Eric sort of asked, like from the business side, I think what's the thing that you want to do from the business side? What's your biggest goal for this? I mean, you're pretty soon coming up on Sunday, you get to walk around and be president of the LA Galaxy on a game day. So you get to shake hands and kiss babies, do all that fun stuff. So what is it specifically that you're excited about, trying to tackle from that position?
It's a special place to be. It's a special position. It's a special team. There's a lot of weight that comes with it, right? There's an obligation. Our team understands that, and they know the importance of what we are able to do and what we're capable of being the LA Galaxy. We don't take that lightly. Our team's going to hustle. We're going to work hard, and we're going to do everything in our power to deliver. And I know I can speak for Greg and his technical team. They're going to do the same thing. So I guess what I want to relay to the group and to the listeners is we're here. We're going to bust our butts, and we're going to do a really good job working hard for you guys. So we want a team in a business that our fans are proud of and continue to be proud of. So that's what I'm most excited about is really working hard, getting to work, and delivering at a high level for all of our fans.
Well, Tom, we want to appreciate you coming on. We certainly appreciate it. But I want you to know this forum is open to you whenever you'd like. Call in whenever you want. We're always happy to have you. You're always a welcome guest. So good luck on the new position and getting things turned around. And I'm sure we'll see you out at the stadium on Sunday.
Great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. There you go. There
Appreciate
goes
the time, Tom.
There goes Tom Braun, new president of business operations. It's going to be tough. It's difficult because there's like an LA Galaxy president, and you're used to saying that, but this is like president of business ops because now we have to be, divided in some things. Yeah. I mean, there you go. I've been doing this long enough. I know what generally to expect from people. And like I said, I really like Tom. I would say that there's going to be criticism lobbed his way, as there always is, especially coming in from a regime that got caught cheating, right? And that there were suspensions in there and that type of thing. And it's his job on the business side to put some things together. And from everything I've seen, this isn't, and I hate to even make the comparison because I think sometimes it's unfair, but this isn't Chris Klein. Chris Klein didn't have a background in business, didn't have an MBA from USC, didn't have the sports background, didn't have, the time at AEG, didn't have some of those things that Tom does. And so I would say from the academic or the experience wise, Tom seems like a good candidate for that. That being said, I think you and I were talking about beforehand, they promoted everybody within, right? So it's the same ideas from within the organization. Now, Will Misselbrook is from outside the organization. He came in, and so that's a new voice, but everybody else who's in there is sort of the same. So we said it before he came on. I just wonder how much things are really going to change, because it feels like, and Tom even mentioned this, it feels like we're going back to what we were doing with Bruce and the whole way things were sort of organized and that way. But I just wonder what's really going to change, because while I feel this is a nice, like, warm sweater, it's like, oh, that's comfortable, and oh, look, it's, it feels good, and it's something you've worn before, and it feels good to say that. I wonder what the results are going to be. I mean, big questions, and I know the chat room's asking about Herbalife and everything else like that. Those questions are coming. You'll be able to, I'm sure you'll be able to ask that of Tom whenever he gets a chance at town halls and all sorts of stuff. But bottom line is, from a business side, and we've always argued this, Eric, the Herbalife sponsorship's been good to the LA Galaxy in terms of the amount of money, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the paradox in the situation of being, quote unquote, good on the business side, is that sometimes that's not always, at the benefit of the consumer, and that's kind of the unique thing about being part of a soccer club and having a fan base, because it's they don't necessarily go hand in hand all the time. The question about concessions, I agree with what he's saying, compared to, a Dodger Stadium, to the Coliseum, to, crypto.com or, Staples Center. Mm-hmm. The Galaxy Stadium is moderately priced. It is not.
I went to SoFi for Taylor Swift, and the two beers, the one beer, two waters, and one, can of wine, of course, was like $75.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so it's one of those things, like, you may not like that answer, but that doesn't make it untrue. Right. And so that's kind of the tough dance that you have to do, and why it's a difficult position to be in. But to your point, going back to previous people who were in the regime before, we talk about the separation of duties. You want a person who is not a former player necessarily, running the business side. You want someone who has a business background and a business education. And people can say it feels like more of the same, but you also have to think that AEG, bigger umbrella, someone who's been with the company and knows, you think of how overarching AEG is, and having someone within that organization and all the different pieces that it touches, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have someone who is familiar with the organization, knows all the little ins and outs and different, programs that you can bring in. There's a reason I brought up the Coachella Valley Invitational. That's something that if you're not connected to AEG, probably doesn't enter your mind, because music festivals, what other soccer clubs in MLS are thinking about a music festival style setup or have the resources to do that? Sometimes you need someone who knows different parts of the business, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. To the point of going back to the way things were, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth, because that's my favorite thing to do.
Yes,
is
go for it.
The way things are going right now are not working. So trying to do the way that getting things back to the way they were before is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But the other side of it, you do want to see what's the innovation, what's the next thing. Are we leading the charge, and what's going to be the next best thing, the next best fan experience? What's going to be, leading the innovation space? How are the Galaxy going to be in front of that, as opposed to going back? Because we've heard it kind of gets tired. 5 championships, going back, like sitting back on that isn't necessarily a good thing. Although I think the situation that the Galaxy have been in the last 2 or 3 years, trying to go back and kind of right the ship before you start putting all the engines and modifying your vehicle, doing all that, I think that's okay for right now. The space that the Galaxy just need to stay afloat right now. And then once they get like they have their bearings, then we can, look for the propellers and all the different pieces. I'm mixing all my metaphors.
That's
and,
okay.
Vehicles, things going on. But I think right now it's about riding the ship, and then we can talk about moving forward in innovation maybe a little bit later. So I don't know if that's both sides of my mouth or if I'm being too flowery or giving them too much credit. But for the people who say it's more of the same, I'd say look at this season.
Yeah. I mean,
since change happened,
right?
There's been a noticeable change,
right?
So obviously, even without whoever's involved now, there's things that are happening that are different than they were a year ago. Right. And I think you can't say it's more of the same as you're seeing changes and different things happening. You may not like the changes that are happening, or you may wish it could be done differently, but there's an attempt to make changes. I don't think you could say that they're not trying. Right. They're not trying to make changes and to better the club. I don't think you could say they're just resting on those 5 championships. Saying they want to get it back to the way it was isn't saying, oh, we're fine, which I think was probably how a lot of the fan base felt is, hey, we're fine. We don't have anything to worry about. That's different than we want to get things back to our winning ways, right. Back to being, that's a different thing. And I think maybe some people are confusing getting back to things the way they were is not necessarily more of the same.
Yeah. And I think Will's going to have to push against that this is the same, right? I would say
Tom,
that this
Tom.
Yeah. Sorry, Tom. Thinking. Well, there's so many Wills. There's like 7 Wills, and there's like
there's
Tom.
Will Millsabrook, yeah.
I mean, the whole deal with Tom is that he seems to have that hunger. If you've ever been around him, he sort of has that drive. He's one of those guys who has that drive. I can speak from seeing him around and meeting him a couple times, right? And so I don't know him really well, and if he wants to call and we can have dinner, no problems. I like how I just invite myself to things. It's great.
I was going to say he's not going to listen back to this.
No, he's not listening to any of this after this anyway. But no, I think Tom, I think he does want to do well, and I'm not saying that Chris didn't want to do well either. But eventually there became a time when there was bunkering, right, where like you're just trying to bunker from the outside because the outside is closing in and there's not a way out except to just sit there and like bunker. Tom is now given the opportunity to breathe outside, right? And to live outside and to enjoy and do these things.
Let the shields down, yeah.
Yeah, let the shields down and sort of be that guy. And he feels like the type of guy who has that drive. But I'm super interested to see how this goes. I'm interested in the dispute resolution. I know that there's lots of flowery language that we can put out there to say all this stuff. But what happens when there really is a disagreement about the stuff? What about and ultimately we know the answer is Dan Beckerman, right? And that's where it goes. And is that the guy you want making those decisions too, right? And during COVID, Dan was fairly pointed with Kevin and with some of the other criticisms that he hires people to make decisions. He doesn't make the decisions himself. And Dan has been in the decision-making process for the LA Galaxy now since Chris Klein got suspended and the whole deal, and he had to spend a whole bunch of time at the offices and all that stuff. So again, I would imagine since Klein's suspension, this has been sort of the layout. Greg Vanney has the operations side, and so there's nothing groundbreaking about what is happening right now. And I think even Tom said that, which was we're going back to the way it was, so we know how to operate this way. But the bottom line is most of the people in the front office have no idea how to operate that way because they weren't there whenever that happened. And
that's the benefit of not having a former player on your business side of operations, because I think you can say that there, what did you call it? Dispute resolution?
Yes.
Dispute?
Yes.
That piece of it can be an issue. But when you have someone who's solely dedicated to the business side, they're not a former player, they're not a former coach. They're not going to want to give their 2 cents necessarily on the player side because that's not their lane. And, Greg Vanney is not going to tell me on how to set up the music festival and how to, what to do about stadium upgrades. That's not Greg Vanney's lane either. So I think while you can't, there may be some, parts where it overlaps, in terms of stadium upgrades and how that's going to affect the experience for the players. There's going to be an overlap there, but I think the delineation, there's less crossover and there's not going to be as much gray area. I think you can swing it in the positive way as well.
Yeah, and the whole deal. Listen, I'm all for giving people the chance to do things, and I think that's what you sort of have to do with Tom. Bottom line is, it's not about talk, Eric. It's not about coming on here and telling us what it is or what it isn't doing. It's all about the action and the results and everything else. And by the way, unfortunately for Tom, a lot of his, and maybe this is protecting him a little bit, right? Because a lot of his success will still be measured by on the field success, right? Because if the Galaxy are doing well, then people want to be in the stands. People are in the stands, then they're driving the concession sales and everything that they want to do, right? So there's still some of that, but at the same time, how many times do we hear, oh, but Chris Klein's a great business person, right? And Chris Klein's a big... So this does protect him from the LA Galaxy having a horrible year, and that they can at least have some continuum with, the business side of things, and at least can be measured against those metrics without having to always be measured against the metrics of on the field. From Tom's perspective, from Greg's perspective, it's all about results on the field, right? Which is interesting because I'm going to tell you here in a second that right now, with them basically putting Greg at the same level as Tom and creating that sort of co-presidency, even though it's not named that way, is that basically the Galaxy are saying, you need to continue to build out the infrastructure that you've been building out, and we're looking at that as much as we're looking at it at on the field stuff as well. That you continuing to build that out and finish out that build up and give something that is complete, and to have all those departments actually built out, all of the infrastructure invested in, a functioning front office, which is something that I talked to every manager since Kurt Onalfo left, and they said this is the problems with the LA Galaxy. Greg Vanney has made the most progress on that out of anybody, and considerable progress in that. Not just like, oh, they got a scout. Oh, they did this. Considerable progress, Eric. And that's why whenever you see this announcement, I will say that it certainly tells me that Greg Vanney's back in 2024, regardless of sort of what happens here in the last. And you can disagree with that. I don't. I actually think that that's still correct. You need to build out the infrastructure. You need to do stuff. And if that's Greg's biggest advantage to doing everything, if he's the one who can finally finish that and get that set and stable, then that's a bigger benefit to the LA Galaxy to be successful down the road for years and years and years, even if the on the field still sort of struggles in some of those areas. That being said, I also have a lot of confidence that the on the field stuff is starting to shake itself out as well, just in terms of the players that are coming in and the types of things. But to me, that means Vanney's back in 2024, and people can argue about that all you want. I've been saying it, and then they went and made this announcement, and it just reiterates that to me.
This does solidify that Greg Vanney will be the coach starting the 2024 season. But I will say, as someone who's been critical of him, I don't think he gets a pass beyond 2024. I think if there are struggles next season, it's absolutely fair to put him on the hot seat, because how many times have we talked about we haven't put more than a 2-game winning streak together. At some point, you're going to need to the results on the field are going to need to be stellar. Keeping a mediocre coach around, with those in terms of results, not saying he's mediocre, but when the results are mediocre, just keeping them around because they've got great ideas, that's not going to fly. And so that's the other piece of it. And where the whole gray area goes in, as Tom mentioned, what's most important to him is getting that stadium filled every single weekend. Yeah. But how do you get that stadium filled every single weekend? You have a winning team and that's attractive, plays attractive soccer, and brings people in. You can have the most beautiful state-of-the-art stadium. Look at SoFi Stadium. Look at some of those things. But when you have the Rams losing, it's not the same as when they're Super Bowl contenders. Or I'll even give some credit when the Chiefs are in town or when the Raiders are in town. It's a different draw, and it comes down to who's on the field and what's going to be a good product to watch. And so that's going to be a little bit of the difference. And so there is a gray area. They need to work together. But I think the fact that Tom mentioned what those goals are, filling the stadium and having the business focus, I think that is going to be a good thing moving forward.
He didn't like my lower beer prices. I thought that was I really
did. Anyone? I mean, I appreciate that you kind of were a man of the people.
Right.
You asked the question, but that answer was about what I expected. He wasn't. This is like sixth grade student council, and every time we're going to get McDonald's delivered to lunch every week. Like, he's not going to come in and promise $2 beer night.
Sixth grade student council is so accurate. Yes.
That's not how it's going to work. He's running a business, and some of that may be out of his control in terms of concessions. We've had that discussion.
Levy restaurants and the whole thing is just, it's a nightmare.
That's a whole separate conversation. And it could be something, he mentioned the fan council. Maybe that's something that they can work on contracts.
Right. A lot of criticism, by the way, coming from supporters groups and fans saying that the fans cancel. I would like to point out.
President of Business Operations.
Fan council is run by the club, right? And wouldn't it be better if the fan council was run by the supporters instead? So that way there wasn't this overall reaching club thing. I still think there's a benefit to it, even though the club is running it, and it's a place to be heard. And I think if they pick, I think if they're going to pick, there's going to be, I think, 15 people on the fan council. Yeah. So there's enough there. They should get a representative of what they're looking for.
And they mentioned some in supporters groups, some outside of supporter groups. I don't have any issue with them creating a fan council. Respectfully, I'm going to disagree. If you want, your supporter groups to run the fan council, you have your supporter groups. And last time I checked, respectfully again, how well did those groups get along in making decisions, and everyone was in sync and step in step with each other? Was that exactly running perfectly? Having the fans run it, right. I would argue it wasn't exactly working out the best. It's okay. You can still run your supporters groups and have your leadership and make those decisions. And then the Galaxy could have their fan council with input from those groups as well. I don't think you can have it both ways. You can't complain that the club doesn't care about what the fans think and then get mad when the club wants to get interest from the fans. I don't think you could have it both ways.
Right. I think the argument is that it's more of a PR move and that they're not going to listen. I am open to the possibility. I am open to the possibility that it is an effective way to gauge what is going on with the fans. I am open to that possibility. If it turns out,
it's better than not having a fan council.
I probably, yes. I agree with that. So anyway, so that's the stuff there. Let's now talk about the LA Galaxy a little bit here. Whenever we look,
is that why we're here?
I don't know. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing all the way. I wanted to talk a little bit. There was a chart The Athletic put out how often each MLS team has led, trailed, or been level in a match. And let's just say the LA Galaxy ain't doing great. The Galaxy have been losing 28% of the time. That's not horrible whenever you think about it. You're like, that's not, I don't know. Well, like the whole deal is like, well, what are some of the top teams, in that, Columbus was losing only 20% of the time, right? So the Galaxy, at 28%, it doesn't seem horrible. St. Louis, 18%, Orlando, 16%, New England, 14%, right? That type of thing. So understanding where the Galaxy sit at 28%, it doesn't feel horrible. Colorado, New York at 37%, that's worse. Okay. I'm feeling a little bit better there. The draws for the Galaxy at 54%. There's a lot. It's wide ranging in there. I really think you should look at the chart whenever you look at it. And it sort of helps, but the winning, and how often the LA Galaxy have been winning. And that's where this chart was sorted by. Because Columbus has been winning 45% of the time. Doesn't mean that's how it ended, by the way, right? You could be leading for 89 minutes, Eric, and you're tied for 1 minute and losing for 1 minute, and you're all of a sudden you're there, right? So the LA Galaxy at 18% winning is a low number.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's not great, Bob.
Yeah, in terms of how that look, it's a bad look. But also, we keep going back to 13th place. Look at how they started. Are you surprised by this?
No.
Given how it was? No. So it kind of shakes out. I'm curious to see what this chart would look like, over the course of the last, 10 games, 11 games. We know how it's going to look in that favor, but you have to, those games in the beginning of the season counted. And so, of course, this isn't surprising given the way they started the season.
Yeah, not at all. And by the way, whenever you're looking at the losing percentages, like Montreal has been losing 37% of the time. Right. And they've been winning 24% of the time. So you can sort of look at some of these and gauge where it is. And it's better to be winning, clearly. But is
this like it's if you score more goals than the other team, you usually win?
You usually win, right? Yeah. But I mean, one of the leaders in that stat is Columbus, right? In terms of winning. And you go and look at the stats, and Columbus is in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. Not saying that's bad place.
Yeah, they're not the best team. You would think on that chart that they've been dominating games, but that's not necessarily the case.
Right, absolutely. So, somebody said, what's the most drawiest team? 49%. Is there anything above 40? Yeah, 53,
54. Sounders at 54.
Do
I hear 56? Minnesota at 56.
The Galaxy at 54. How about that for the draws? The Galaxy at 54. Oh, Dallas at 58. There we go. 58%.
We have a winner, folks.
Yeah, 58% FC Dallas. That's where it's been. So anyway, now let's go to another chart that I didn't produce. It's always nice to get some charts. This is Ben Wright, at Ben Wright on Twitter. Comes out projected standings based on home away points per game. All right. Basically goes on to say Inter Miami and LA Galaxy closing the gap in the playoff race. DC United sneaking into the play-in round. Right. So let's take a look at what the chart says and sort of where it goes, right? Eastern Conference is fun, but nobody really cares. Let's just talk about the Western Conference. The LA Galaxy based on home points per game and away points per game, then projected those points out for the rest of the season That's where you're getting this. So they are saying that the LA Galaxy are projected to finish with 40 points. All right. Now that's 2 points lower than where we sort of have
not
them,
good
right?
enough, I don't think.
Yeah, and right now, if you do it based on everything, they finish 11th, right? At least they got out of 13th, Eric. That's good, right? They're not stuck there forever.
But that's not in the plan. Yeah, we've said this, and you've said it. If they win all their games, that'll fix everything.
Yeah.
But they can't go how they've been going. There needs to be an uptick. They need that 3-game streak,
Right.
which just can't seem to find that extra gear to propel them. If unfortunately, as much hope as the game a couple weeks ago gave us, this wouldn't surprise me if they finished 11th, 40 points. It just being too late of a charge and too deep of a hole to get out of.
Right. Yeah, and that's sort of where you're seeing some of this stuff, right? Here's the thing: the max number of points, 56 for the LA Galaxy, so definitely within that. I will tell you one thing about this chart: it's based on home points per game and away points per game. The Galaxy have more home games than away games, and so the home points per game, they've underperformed at home, and this is where this chart I think can be off, right? Where it sort of shows where it is. I think you can find 2 more points in there for the LA Galaxy at home because they have underperformed at home so far this season. And whenever you sort of take in that underperformance, if they perform at a level where I think we would expect them to perform, Eric, they can get more points there. So this is actually a very good chart that sort of shows you where the Galaxy could be. And I would say that the projected is probably under where I expect the Galaxy to finish. 43 is probably the points where I'm still thinking they sort of get to. So anyway, that's one of those things that I wanted to point out there and sort of see how that was going, right? So the other thing that's going on is the power rankings, Eric, and you know how much we love complaining about power rankings.
They kind of got it right, kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, up to a certain point, but also no. Right?
Yeah, to the point that you're going to make is the Galaxy 22. If our biggest complaint, if the true power rankings is how the team is performing at the moment, 22 is probably too low of a spot for how the Galaxy are playing.
Especially being that there is one team that is lower than the LA Galaxy in points, right? And is going through all this stuff that is now they're putting in the number 2 spot, which is Miami.
But I don't disagree with that in the power rankings.
Yes. Okay.
I think Miami is absolutely, if you're there's no team that wants to play Miami right now. Right now, Miami is absolutely, I would even argue that you can put them number 1 in the power rankings, but I think you've seen what FC Cincinnati is doing, and they deserve that spot,
right.
Especially given where Miami is coming from. Okay, fair to put them at number 2, but I kind of agree with that. If you're going right now, who's the hottest team? Who's there? I think Miami at number 2 is not a terrible thing, which is why it's kind of confusing as to why the Galaxy landed 22 because that doesn't necessarily match. It comes down to star power. They don't have a World Cup winner on their team.
By the way, Feel the Berm says we're feeling 22, which is a Taylor Swift shout out. Mr. Kevin Acevedo, who works for the LA Galaxy, is listening, and he would like everybody to know that we've lost that the LA Galaxy have lost the fewest matches in MLS since May 31st, only adding fuel to the fire.
It's been one, right? One loss.
One loss.
Yeah.
One loss in that whole time, but 22. Even Taylor Swift doesn't like that. All right, that's not what that's supposed to be.
We need a Taylor Swift sound effect. Yeah,
I probably would get it. Would be too much for me to handle. I don't know that you could allow me to have that sound effect.
That's true.
I think
you would definitely be pressing that button
way too many times, right? Yeah. So anyway, so just look at the power rankings. The argument with the power rankings, Eric, you and I have always said is at the end of the season, it shouldn't be about who finished first on the standings. Table. It's not the standings. It's about who's the hottest team. And that means that the worst team, like Miami, right, which was down at the bottom, the very bottom of the bottom, everybody was expecting that it wasn't going to, that they weren't going to do anything. They get Messi, they get Jordi Alba, they get Busquets, come in there, they get the U22 players, they start winning games, they start taking people down. Again, the argument here would be that the LA Galaxy haven't played big games. They haven't beat LAFC. They haven't beat Philadelphia in the same week, right? That didn't happen. No, it did happen. And therefore, if you want to do that, you have to say the Galaxy are higher. And Miami should be 2, or like you said, 1. Yeah. Cincinnati's been playing still really well. And they're going
that's why I don't think you could dethrone Cincinnati, but you could have the argument for sure.
Yeah. Oh, somebody said we should get a sound effect for Acevedo whenever he comes in for like a stats bomb. We'll just give him the Panda and Pato in the morning. Right. That's about
I do eagerly anticipate the Kevin Acevedo tweet at post game because he always brings a good kernel. Always makes me happy when I see those tweets go out.
You should hear him. You should hear him in the post game. He's always rattling that stuff off. We're always having discussions about it in the just before the press conference starts. So he's in there. Very useful all the time, Mr. Acevedo. We appreciate it. So that's that stat, right? So already power rankings like normal trash. Absolute trash.
Kinda.
Yeah, kind of.
Sorta.
We agree with some of the, we only agree with them whenever it fits our narrative. All right. So that's where I go. Let's talk about another narrative that is being shot down right now. MLS went out and put in a list of the 7 most improved players in MLS this season, and they listed Mr. Jonathan Bond on there. And it says, of course, sitting down in 13th in the West. Should we get a t-shirt that just says 13? On it? Oh wait, that's a Taylor Swift number
numbers.
too.
Yeah. 22, 13. Yeah, we're gonna figure out our numbering system here. We gotta play you know what it is? We gotta play Powerball.
Yeah,
13, 22,
okay.
58.
Somebody write these down, all right? So that way we can all go in together.
Did you watch Lost? Tangent. Remember Lost?
I was not a Lost fan, but no, why? Why?
Because they had the numbers 4, 8, 15. Yeah, that was the whole thing. It was a big deal. And then I think those lottery numbers hit one day. And whoever thought that they were very clever to play the lost numbers, they went to go wait in line, and there was a line of hundreds of people who all played the same exact lotto numbers. So shout out to Lost.
Great series, Lost.
Ahead of its time.
After finishing last year's, this is from the article.
Speaking of losing, right? There's a segue there.
After finishing last year's the 24th best shot stopper in Major League Soccer based on post-shot expected goals. Bond has skyrocketed up to 5th. He saved 0.18 goals more than expected per 90, according to Football Ref, which puts him squarely in the second tier of MLS goalkeepers underneath Danielle, Jordi Petrovic, and Roman Berkey. Right, by the way, Berkey coming up this weekend with St. Louis. That plus 0.18 figure is a massive bump from the minus 0.17 figure that Bond registered last year. Goalkeeper numbers can be volatile, but the Galaxy will be hoping this is a sign Bond will be a top shot stopper moving forward. Basically what they're saying is that he has become a much better shot stopper. And by the way, there's lots of people who I put this out and I tweeted it and I said, here's this is interesting. Read it, do the whole thing. People, stats lie. Yes, stats do lie. Sometimes stats tell the truth too, and they help you see things that you didn't see before. We've always said that. You use them to sort of help your eyes see things, right? That type of thing. Here's the thing with Jonathan Bond. If you didn't go back and watch that Houston game about the 3 really great stops and saves that he had in that game, then you weren't paying attention. Did he almost give some away? Absolutely. Goalkeepers have their moments, right? And all that stuff. Is he great on distribution? No. I think I like Petrovic a little better than Bond right now in terms of distribution. But in shot stopping, Jonathan Bond has been right there with the Galaxy defense. You want to talk about 2 shutouts in the last 3 games? The LA Galaxy, defense has helped, and Jonathan Bond has helped. In order for that to happen. So I do think Bond is feeling more comfortable. I think the defense is helping that as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference, as you see the shift in the defense, I think, with Jalen Neal, how he started the season, even given the number of losses that they racked up. You see Yoshida, the way he's been playing recently, Caligari, what he's been able to provide. I think the defense has definitely had a huge impact on why you've seen Jonathan Bond's improvement. But another example, Jonathan Bond, I think, is a perfect example of you either die a hero or you live long enough to be the villain. And I think, because he's been, like we mentioned last week, what is he, 3rd all time on goalie minutes? He's been with the club long enough. And so when you're with the club long enough, you make some mistakes. And, shout out to Kevin Hartman, one of my favorite LA Galaxy goalkeepers. He had some pretty bad moments in MLS Cup finals that put the Galaxy in a bad situation. And I don't think people look back and say, and say he was a bad goalkeeper. He was a great goalkeeper, but there were moments where, it was shaky and it may have cost us. Same thing with Bond. There are moments where Bond has been shaky. That is 100% fair. And I think when you look at some of the backups that have come in and stepped up and played good games who have maybe made Bond feel a little uneasy, I think that's fair as well. But I don't think you could say he's been poor or bad. I think we've seen bad LA Galaxy goalkeepers, and I don't think you could put Jonathan Bond in the bad LA Galaxy goalkeeper territory.
No Name says we need to appreciate Bondy more. I think people forget how bad it was during the Bingham days. Who is the number 2 goalkeeper?
I didn't want to say the name, but I'm just saying, yeah.
Okay, good. By the way, that was also an Acevedo stat that he tossed to us during a post-game press conference, was the goalkeeper ones with Jonathan Bond. So shout out Kevin, getting 2 shout outs. Long-time listener, first-time caller, Kevin. Let me know.
Is he going to get a producer credit on this episode? I think so.
I don't know. I'm starting to that whole independent news thing is starting to go out the window with him throwing stats in here all the time.
This is going to be Corner of the Galaxy, Kevin's version. See, I knew you'd like that one.
I like it way too much. We're going to get a t-shirt for Kevin, for sure. All right. Let's take a look at the standings real quick. Eastern Conference, we talk about Cincinnati. They've already clinched playoff spot, 57 points. They're going for the all-time point total. That's all you need to know about the Eastern Conference. Western Conference, the LA Galaxy facing off against St. Louis, who currently lead the Western Conference by 6 points over Seattle. LAFC at 40 points, Salt Lake at 40 points, Houston at 39, Vancouver 38, Minnesota 36, San Jose 36, Dallas 34, Austin 33, Kansas City 32, Portland 30, LA Galaxy 29. We've already talked about it. The LA Galaxy at the 1.16 can jump over Portland already with sort of their points per game stats, where it goes sitting just underneath Kansas City as well. So, hold on. You go talk.
I'm going to say I'll vamp here. From this standings example is the complete opposite of where the Galaxy are coming from, where how bad was their beginning of the season that they've had the run that they've had, and they're still in 13th place. You look at St. Louis, yes, which is now come back down to earth, and you look at how good did they start, that they've, maybe been, middle of the table, maybe on terms of form or power rankings, wherever you put them, but they're still sitting at the top of the Western Conference competing for the Supporters Shield because they had such a hot start at the very beginning. So there's your difference right there is, the hot start to the season for St. Louis has them sitting at the top. Poor start for the start of the season has the Galaxy sitting at the bottom. It's pretty, it's almost oversimplistic. Going back to my example, if you score more goals, than the other team, you're going to win. It's kind of an obvious thing, but you're seeing it play out because I think you look at the way the teams are playing right now. I wouldn't say that St. Louis, I said this last week with Houston, I don't think that they should have feared Houston, but right, as that game played out, I saw teams that were very evenly matched.
Right.
I think same thing with St. Louis. They have good players on that team. You talked about Berkey, who's an excellent goalkeeper. You have Joaquini, who made the Galaxy pay last time they played. They have talented players, but I don't think the Galaxy are going to get smashed by them. I don't say, this Supporter Shield contending number 1 in the West team is coming in. Let's cover up, duck and cover, because it's going to get ugly. I expect the Galaxy to try to get some points here.
The Western Conference is mediocre at best, and maybe it's just
it's mid, as the kids say.
I can't. I keep trying. Like, I see the TikToks, I'm there, and I'm like, I just can't use it in a sentence. You know how it is? It's like I know my place. I shouldn't be there. But yes, very mid. And maybe that's not even fair. Maybe it's just very even. Everything is very equal, right?
That's probably a better way to say it. Correct.
Cuticini, Fettuccini. They're having a nice conversation in the chat
room. Chat never disappoints.
No.
The
always.
Dog Days of Bingham was one of my favorite ones.
That was definitely a good one there. Well, just the schedule that's coming up. Saturday, there's going to be 4 games. That means 8 teams playing there. It's going to be 10 total teams playing whenever the LA Galaxy take on St. Louis, coming up at 5 p.m. on Sunday. The only game on Sunday is the LA Galaxy in St. Louis. Keep that in mind as we go. Now, let's talk about Efrain Alvarez. Why not? Because this is an interesting story. Alex Ruiz has been all over this, and a lot of reports there. The LA Galaxy will receive $2.2 million for homegrown Efrain Alvarez. He will sign with the Xolos until 2026. That's down in Tijuana. Galaxy will retain future sell-on percentage for the young midfielder. Medical test set to happen in the coming days. Let's just say that $2.2 million is a very good bit of business, but let's talk about it a little bit. When you figure that the Galaxy are paying $600,000 to $700,000 a year for the current contract, that's like 3 years, a little less than or a little more than 3 years of salary. So the Galaxy have sunk costs in this. So getting the 2.2 is good, but it probably doesn't, over the life of Efrain Alvarez, it probably doesn't get them in the green, but maybe it gets them back in the black, so to speak, and a little bit. They're even, they're making money. They didn't lose money on Efrain Alvarez.
I was going to say, when you talk about like the car comparison or trading in your car, this is a car that has, the Galaxy got a lot of miles out of this one. So yeah, maybe you're not getting your full value or what you thought it was going to be worth, but given, the wear and tear, you're getting, I think, a fair price for Efrain. So it's kind of interesting. I think this also, looking back in hindsight on Efrain not being part of the team sheet for all these games. I know we're hard on him on this podcast in particular, which I think, rightfully so. I think there are fair critiques, but I think that there could have been a spot for him on the bench. Maybe, you mentioned Johnny Perez. I like Johnny Perez, but right. Efrain has moments coming in off the bench where I think he can provide value. And I think the fact that this deal is now in the works, I think could shine a light on why maybe he wasn't included in the team sheet, because I think he saw the writing on the wall maybe 10 games into the season,
right,
that this was not going to be the year. Every year was going to be the year. And I think, either through his agent or the Galaxy were looking to make moves, we saw that he was probably going to be looking for other alternatives. And it seemed to be true.
Well, and a lot of people were wondering whether Jolis even come in and try to make this deal, right? $2.2 million. One, in Liga MX, it's not a tremendous amount of money. I'll say that, it's fine. It's a good amount of money. I'll say that for the LA Galaxy, retaining a sell-on, which means if he does catch on fire, then the Galaxy will still benefit.
That's the good
nice
business part.
Yeah, I really like that. The other part about this is people are saying, well, TJ could have just waited until the wintertime and they could have had him. The Galaxy had an option on Efrain, though, for the next one. And people were like, well, they were never going to pick up the option. Oh, contraire, mon frère.
Let him go for free?
Yeah. Why would you let him go for free whenever you know that there are people who want to buy him? So I would imagine that the Galaxy absolutely 100% would have picked up the option in the offseason and then looked to trade him for money or done something. Yeah. The fact they're getting $2.2 million, of which, by the way, they get 95% of, okay? So the league gets 5%, the Galaxy get 95%, but that 95% comes after all costs are accrued for the player as well, right? So they do the whole cost, and then the remaining money is split 95%, and so the Galaxy get 95% of that $2.2 million. U22, they get all of it if there's a U22, and it depends on some different things. But the club may assign up to $1.1 million of that into general allocation money. That's huge. For the Galaxy to have $1 million, over $1 million of general allocation money for the 2.2 that comes in, and then they get to basically take another 1.1 and put it in their pocket as cash that they can use around the club in different ways, but they can't go against the salary cap or anything else like that. It's a good bit of business, Eric. Yeah. It's not horrible at all. And I think I remember Omar Gonzalez once went to to Mexico for no money at all. It was $350,000 or something like that. This is real money. It's $2.2 million. You're getting rid of a non-performing asset really for the LA Galaxy. You're also giving him a chance to restart things. And if he catches on fire in Mexico, Galaxy have the sell on. They can still do it. Does it mean that he never comes back to LA if he catches on fire? No, of course not. But maybe the Mexico change helps them. So
to me, this smells very much like a Giassi Zardes, and I think that's the part where people were saying, why is Xolos making this move if they could have waited till he was free? Just because the Galaxy fan base is too close to it, and we saw the underperformance. Well, who would want him? There's still the cachet there. He's had Mexican national team call-ups. He has some highlight reel goals. There are going to be teams that want him. So you're right. I think they would have, given the option, and he could still have something to give down in Liga MX. And I think that's something with him being a dual national and, transferring, becoming a Mexican national team eligible player. I think playing in that league is something that maybe will motivate him a little bit more and could benefit him. He could still have something to give. And the reason I make that comparison to Giassi, his time with the Galaxy was done. Right. And then he went on to Columbus. And, I think he was a Golden Boot contender. He had probably his best, time stint with the national team was after he left the Galaxy. So that doesn't mean that it was a failure of a career. He just had more to give, but he didn't have more to give to the LA Galaxy. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Efrain might still have something to give, but I think for the LA Galaxy, that time is gone and you're able to recoup money. And I think we have our salary show, go back and look at the $1 million range that what you can use in general allocation money. Look at the type of player that you can get for that salary,
right?
And pick one of those guys and replace Efrain Alvarez, and you'd be pretty pleased with that swap if you were able to kind of see who lands in that range.
You may have just paid for somebody like Diego Fagundes for next season, right?
Yeah.
Because, and by the way, doesn't hit TAM, doesn't hit a designated player spot, doesn't hit any of those other things. It's just that, right? And so that you may have just been able to secure that for next season. Galaxy, Will Kuntz, I'm sure he gets to dive around naked in the money now, right? He gets all that money. Do they give it in ones?
Is he Scrooge McDucking it? You think he's going coins?
I don't know if he's going coins. Nobody goes coins except for Scrooge. But dollar bills, right? You get those. Can I get this
He needs
in
the money guns,
dollar
yeah.
bills? Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that's what Will Kuntz is doing right now. Just wanted to say, let's talk a little bit about Dejan Joveljic, because this is an interesting one too. We talked about Dejan Joveljic. Yeah,
having this right after the Efrain conversation says a lot.
Yeah, and exactly. By the way, somebody said, "Hey, maybe it's a Tyler Boyd new contract." By the way, like yeah, 1.1. Yep, Tyler Boyd. That's Tyler Boyd money. And you can make that deal right now because now you know you have the money, right? So you can make it quick. Dejan Joveljic, the 24-year-old Serbian striker, was apparently wanted by Turkish side Trabzonspor, and he apparently agreed with to the club terms, but the LA Galaxy rejected the offer. We don't know how much the offer was. I would say something about this. It's super interesting, and I know people are trying to draw a lot of parallels. It's like, oh, well, Joveljic agreed to it and the whole deal. Listen, if somebody's going to pay you a whole bunch of money and you're like that, you're like, yeah, I agree to it, but the Galaxy have to. It doesn't necessarily mean that Joveljic wants out, right? Because sometimes you're not really going to have that choice. What if the Galaxy agreed to the offer? Then you're just going to have to still go agree to personal terms and everything else.
Yeah.
The Galaxy, to me, and in the conversations I've had behind the scenes, are more than happy to lump the starting minutes towards Dejan Joveljic here down the stretch. They're trying to prove to him that he can be the striker that they know he can be, and do the things that they want him to do. There's not a lack of investment from the Galaxy in Dejan Joveljic. In fact, it's the opposite. They are really trusting him with everything, and it's sort of up to him to perform. And if he can perform, then I think the LA Galaxy are more than happy to keep him. I mean, he has a contract, I think, until 2025. So it's not like it's a short-term thing. They can literally keep Dejan Joveljic for a while here, but he needs to be happy. He's getting the starts, Eric. He's just not getting the goals now. And that's sort of the big thing is, and we've always talked about the starts versus subs and all that stuff. I mean, what's your take on Joveljic right now?
It's one of those things where I was just mentioning Efrain, where there were enough miles on it and we saw what we needed to see. And so having him go at that price, you were ready to let him go. I think with Joveljic, we haven't, taken it for enough spins. I think you still can give another season under Dejan Joveljic to say, okay, this season with injuries and for whatever reason, maybe the pressure, he needed to kind of have this down season. We saw Chicharito. How bad was Chicharito in 2020? And, he had the comeback year and he was able to come back and was the leading scorer. Maybe Joveljic is in the dumps right now. He's in the mud and maybe he needs the bounce back and he needs to go through this in order to have success next season. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on Dejan Joveljic. He's had the opportunities and that's why I was high on Billy Sharp and even giving Billy Sharp the opportunities to start. But I don't think Joveljic is done. I think it's talking about having more to give, and I think the Galaxy sees that. Greg Vanney sees that, and I think for the price that they were offering, while it may have seemed high, given what the Galaxy paid for him, they weren't necessarily breaking even or making a profit. I think Trabzonspor saw an opportunity. Hey, he's not performing. Right. Maybe we can come in with a low bid and kind of steal him away, and then make something happen. And I think the Galaxy were wise to hold on to it. I think it's worth giving another opportunity.
Well, what if I told you, Eric, and the argument always is that Dejan is a better sub than he is a starter. What if I told you that the numbers are actually very, very similar whenever you look at it in a per game setting? Now, obviously, people are going to say, well, but look at it in a per minute setting. And you are correct. Starts, you get more minutes. And so the more minutes per goal would be lower, right? And then on the sub side, you would come in and you would say, okay, that's the whole thing. But really, when you're looking at a guy, Eric, you want a guy to come in and impact you in a game. It almost doesn't matter how many minutes you get. What does he give you per game? And for me, I wanted to sort of look at Dejan Jovljic's offensive production in that game setting. So if you look at Dejan Joveljic, he's started 29 games. He's subbed 40 games, right? 69 total games. This is all regular season. I am not counting any of the U.S. Open Cup crap. I'm not counting any Leagues Cup crap. That doesn't count for me. Show me regular season because I want to see what you're doing in the league. This is the biggest thing that the Galaxy have to play for, right? So starts 29, subs 40. He has 7 goals and 3 assists in those 29 games and 9 goals and 5 assists in the 40 games he's come on as a sub, right? So that means that his goals per game is 0.24 whenever he starts, and it's 0.23 whenever he's a sub. Again, that's per game. He's very even. The numbers are more even than people would like to say. And if you want to slant it per minute and look at it in production per minute, because you can, right?
Yeah.
Then obviously he's going to do better on the sub side than he is going to be on the starting side, right? And that's fine to look at. But again, if he's a starter, what's he going to give you per game? And basically they're telling you right now that once every 4 games, he's going to score a goal, which is similar to what it is in that subway on the sub side of things too.
Yeah. This is funny because at the beginning you were saying, well, the stats lie when we're talking about Bond. I think this is something where it's skewed in the favor of you can make this look like the starts make him more productive. But we're talking about, a hundredth of a decimal point here.
Yep.
So it's not a huge difference between starts and subs. And I think obviously because he's been subbed on more, it's going to be a lower percentage and not necessarily work out in his favor. So you could say, the starts make him more productive. I will say he is a striker. What do you need a striker to do? Score goals. And I think 0.24, 0.23 is not good enough for someone
really
who wants to be a starting striker. And that at the end of the day, I think is the rub and where there's been the issue. And I've seen, on X or Twitter and in the chat, well, the service isn't always there. But when we talk about, that's not always, you look at Ricky Puig, look at Guesman Brugman, look at, Tyler Boyd, the way they've been playing, you're going to say that they're not providing good service. I would argue against that. And so I don't think it's all about him not having, perfect service. I think it's some of it that he needs to work on in creating. We saw it. And I'm going to go back to that example with Chicharito, and he had just that bummer of a season. I think he came back refreshed with a different mindset, different tools in the tool belt. And I think that's what Dejan is going to need to do next season, because for whatever reason, right now it's not firing.
Does Dejan need to get a life coach and get divorced?
He does.
I don't think he's married. Can he get married
maybe
and then
that's
get
the
divorced?
secret. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but he needs a chef. He needs the hype videos, the Rocky IV montages. He needs the motivational speaker. Yeah.
Right.
Dejan needs the whole Chicharito package if he sells that. Yeah.
As someone who has been divorced, I can tell you that right afterwards, you do feel kind of invincible for a while. Maybe that's where Chicharito got all that energy from. I don't know. Just for me. Horrible thing to say. Horrible, Josh.
Yeah,
how
times.
dare you?
Yeah.
God, I'm just speaking from personal
Yeah.
opinions.
If it helps the team, right?
I was like, I'm gonna go to Disneyland by my dang self. So I did, and I was feeling good about it. I went to the movies by myself. It was a great time. Good
That's
times.
an underrated experience. I did that when we had Disney passes as a family.
Yeah.
Sometimes, just the afternoon, kids are occupied, going on your own. It's kind of a freeing experience. Yeah.
Single rider line, baby. That's where it's at.
Single rider's the way to go.
Yeah. Let's get you ready for the game against St. Louis. It is that time. LA Galaxy taking on St. Louis City coming up at 5 p.m., 5:09 p.m. kickoff on Sunday, September 10th. LA Galaxy, the only MLS game that day. Remember, only one other meeting between these two teams, a 1-1 draw earlier this season. Back on June 11th, the Galaxy getting some good draws at St. Louis, one of the first times that they really dropped points at home. So the LA Galaxy were one of those teams that sort of got in there. It was funny. I had to do some, it always, I think it's unfair. But I do like Vancouver radio before every Vancouver game. I do St. Louis radio before every St. Louis game. I do some of the ones like I do radio. I did some Kansas City radio before Kansas City. I do those, but you guys never get to hear it. I'm always like, can I do LA Galaxy pregame?
You need to do a supercut. Do the 2 minutes.
I don't listen to myself at that point. Come on. But anyway, I was talking to one of the St. Louis guys, and we were going back and forth, and he goes, I expect this to be like a really close game, and I'm like, well, yeah. I go, there's nothing in the West is separating anybody from anything in the West. There's not a team. Yeah.
That says a lot. Also, like we were saying. I'm not expecting St. Louis to come in and smash us. And from the St. Louis perspective, it doesn't look like they're coming in, this is, a team that's ripe for the picking,
right?
And that we're going to get 3 easy points. It seems like they seem it's going to be close also.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. Just in St. Louis has lost 4 straight away matches in all competitions, including a 2-1 defeat to Sporting Kansas City on Saturday. If you watch that rivalry game, great game. Really fun game. St. Louis scored first. Kansas City came back with 2 goals in the same half. So St. Louis scored in like the 22nd, and then Kansas City scored in like the 30-something, and then the 43rd to come back in that game and tie it up. It was a really great atmosphere, but a lot of stuff that happened early. And St. Louis has not been playing great on the road, and that's sort of been their thing. They've been a lot more inconsistent. You talked about them coming back down to earth since that start that they had. And that's really is the case. And when you think about it, they played in a rivalry game. It was super intense. It was away from home, not that far away from home, but still a trip away from home. They do that. Now they have to fly all the way out to LA. I don't hate the LA Galaxy's chances, but a lot of this depends on what we're going to see from Greg Vanney tomorrow, which is whenever he tells us about Caligari, whenever he tells us about, Douglas Costa, right? So Doug, what's Doug doing? And I was talking to the guy from St. Louis. I said, if Douglas Costa plays, you guys are in trouble. And I go, because he has been the creative guy. He's been the one who has really been driving the LA Galaxy, and Ricky Pooch plays off of him in that man-on-man game they play. If that doesn't happen, you're going to see a game similar to what you saw against Houston, right? And so there's a lot riding on what this happens. But Raheem Edwards out with yellow card, Caligari possibly out with an injury. Kelvin Leerdam is not in camp.
International duty.
Yeah, he's on international duty. Eric Zavaleta is playing right now or is done playing.
Yeah, he started today. Jalen Neal, not 100%. He's not going to be in the lineup. So yeah, there are some injury concerns. The funny thing is mentioning the St. Louis struggling away from home. You look at their away record, 5-7-1. The Galaxy home record, 4-4-3. Yeah. So it's not like the Galaxy home record is going to be that big of a difference. But I think the way the Galaxy have been playing and the way St. Louis is kind of coming back down to earth, there's an opportunity for the Galaxy to have 3 points here at home.
I will tell you this right now. We're going to look at two charts that are going to illustrate this fact. This is the season-long stats. St. Louis with 44% possession. What does that tell us? It tells us their transition team, right? So then we go and we look at their passing chart. Eric, what does this passing chart say? Transition. They are a transition, counter-attacking team. That's all that they do. And there is an argument to be said that the counter-attack game, the direct counter-attack game, is more simple. Right? There's less things to screw up. You defend well and you catch people on the counter, right? The harder part is to control the pace of the game with possession and do what the LA Galaxy are trying to do. And
you live and die by it. You don't have a mediocre game playing that style. That's kind of the interesting thing. And we saw it when the Galaxy played in St. Louis. The opportunities happened on the counter. Right. And so I think you're going to see more of that, especially with how the Galaxy like to possess. So I think that's going to be the kicker, is the Galaxy being able to possess, and are they going to be able to break them down and maybe spring on the counter of their own when they catch St. Louis, slipping, or when they're pushing forward. But it's also to me, it's going to come down to Berkey. If he has another game where he's standing on his head, which he's had 7 clean sheets this season, then the Galaxy are in trouble, because he has those games. He's had several of them this season, and I think that's going to be, if they can figure out a way to break him down and keep him on his heels, then I think the Galaxy can be in a good position. Because kind of the weird stat on the need to know is talking about the expansion teams. For whatever reason, the Galaxy play really well against expansion teams in their opening season. So it happened with Austin, happened with LAFC that opening season, happened the only bad example that they had was Seattle was able to get some points on them. But whenever they play an expansion team, for whatever reason, just like the Galaxy struggle against Colorado and Houston and those things, the opposite is also true. So this is one of those where the coin flips in our favor. The roulette wheel, it's bound to hit the other direction. I think the Galaxy play well against expansion teams, and I think that's going to work in their favor for whatever good mojo is going around.
Well, I mean, we talk about the counterattack. The way SKC really got into St. Louis was that whenever St. Louis looked at the counterattack, they were able to break up and back press against the counter and break that up, because once St. Louis is so committed to the counter, Eric, that once somebody starts to go, they all go, right? And if you can break the counter, you can back press the counter, you can steal a ball and it's wide open, because St. Louis has already committed to going forward, because that's how they score goals.
That's the Ricky Pooch special right there. You get Ricky, and if Doug is back and Tyler Boyd, if you break that up and send them, I think the Galaxy are in really good shape.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But that's the interesting thing to me whenever we do it. The thing we haven't mentioned, pups at the pitch as well.
Pups at the pitch.
This is pretty exciting for stuff. $27. By the way, I think the deadline to get this is already passed. I think it came up today. But I wanted to at least mention it with pups at the pitch. $27. If you are already a season ticket member, you could get it for $10, and basically $10 to bring your dog in and go up on the berm. Everybody's going to be up on the berm that has it. Purina is going to be up there. You get a bandana for your dog, a bag of Purina treats for your dog. And so basically there's going to be choice of 3 matches, including this Sunday. So there's 2 other ones after this that you can also look at. So that's exciting for Pups to the Pitch. It's always nice to have your friendly.
Yeah, to have your dog. I know people love their dogs. I love my dogs. I've got 3 of them at home. My concern, who's on cleanup? Who's bringing the bags? You bring your own bag? Or the Galaxy supplying bags? That's the part that concerns me. I love the berm. Don't mess up the berm. We're gonna have those spots on the grass.
Yeah, right.
For the next game, we'll see how that goes.
They got paint. They'll
All right,
be fine.
fair
No,
enough.
no problem. We have Pups at the Pitch. Merchandise. The LA Galaxy collaborated with local artist Diana Ramirez on a new collector pin, which features the signature LA Quasar mark enclosed in a chain link heart, so fans will be able to purchase that. LA Galaxy Foundation is going to be there. Northwest Pad, so outside the Northwest entrance, they're going to have the merch truck. I think it was there last time too. So some Soccer Fest, Cosmo Cadets, the LA Galaxy Foundation, LA Galaxy Programming, all that fun stuff. I think After will be there for pupusas. So it should be a fun Sunday. Yes?
Yeah, they're also running another promotion where you can get a referee branded card. So the LA Galaxy referee cards. So it's funny, we were talking a few shows ago when they did the Menace collaboration, and maybe that was too big for my britches, like, asking Galaxy employees, if you want to send it my way. But I will say, I think the level where I land, amateur podcaster, I think I'm good for a set of LA Galaxy ref branded cards. So if some of those find their way to my address, I wouldn't be upset.
You wouldn't be upset. Can I tell you, back in my fan days, whenever, like, this was 2009, I think 2009, I actually made my own referee cards.
Yeah, it's a classic move.
Right, because you can make them
Yeah.
out of that foam,
Yeah.
right? The foam, and then you get the yellow foam and the red foam, and you sort of get the size. And so everybody in the section in 108, where I used to sit, everybody had those cards. So you could just bring them up, and everybody in my section had them, and people were like, "Where'd you get those?" And so I would like make more like every game and pass out more, and it slowly spread. So really, the LA Galaxy owe this idea to me, is what I'm trying to say. So
it's a fun concept, because then God forbid the other team gets a red card or yellow card, then everyone just starts showing the goods. So I think that's a fun little promotion that they're running also.
it should be good. Gary, $5 super chat. Thank you guys again for another great show. Please never stop. Much appreciated. Hit that like button. It's the right thing to do. I agree. It is the right thing to do on that. Now, we've talked about all that fun stuff. And by the way, Mr. Ravino says, counter the counter, the counter. That will be this game. That
Counter
is
the counter.
Yeah, counter the counter. And I really think the Galaxy can do that. And we'll watch them to see if they pull that off. Predictions guaranteed to be wrong, Eric. Do you have your
I
other
have my
stuff?
D
Yes.
ratings.
Yeah,
D
go for
ratings.
it. D ratings.
Be very careful when you Google that, by the way, after the conversation that you had last week.
Somebody was asking me on the Discord. They're like, "What was
you
that
meant?
site?" And I'm like, "It's this." But just be careful. Just if you don't
careful
type it in
typing it
right, you could be in trouble. So yes,
It's on you. Here we go.
Yes.
D ratings has the LA Galaxy with a 47.5% chance to win.
Close it out.
St. Louis with a 27.6% chance to win,
Nope.
and then a draw with a 24.9. So for whatever reason, expansion teams, the way the Galaxy have been playing, the Galaxy are pretty heavily favored with 1.58 projected goals for the Galaxy and 1.15 projected goals for St. Louis. So again, if you're playing those games, maybe a 1-1 draw is what you want to go for. You look at the money line. St. Louis plus 270, LA Galaxy minus 115, a draw at plus 310. So they're not really, even though their projected goals probably land at like a 1-1 draw, the draw is not really where you're going to, win a lot of money. They're not predicting a draw. So kind of interesting. The Galaxy heavily favored here. So kind of interesting that they're in the lead against the number one team. This again, they use Vegas
stupid.
odds.
Did they use
You don't like it?
538? Did they go back on 538 site? Is that where they're pulling? Is D ratings pulling
saying.
their stuff from
All
stuff
right,
that
we'll see
hasn't
how it
updated
goes.
in June? I'm just, I don't know. This is a stupid game. I'll be honest with you. Like I'm gonna lie. And even if I did, like you would know. I feel like the Galaxy are gonna win the game. It's stupid, but
it is.
I
You want
just,
to know my logic?
yeah. What's your logic?
The Galaxy don't have to factor in Vanny winning 3 in a row.
Yeah.
This is a new streak. They've drawn.
that's
So
right.
now they can start another 2-game winning streak. And so the Galaxy win 2-1. That's my guess.
2-1. Yeah, I mean that's a good call. It's not going to get crazy. It's not going to be 3-2,
No.
right? It's not going to be a 5
I don't
goal.
think so.
This isn't a 5
Well, now
goal.
that you said that,
It's
nowadays.
probably a 5-goaler. No, I think 2-1. I think you're on there. It's stupid. This game is stupid because this is the Western Conference leaders. They're coming in, they're traveling, they're doing all this stuff. I put
International break. Yeah.
international break, like all this stuff. A lot of it does depend, though. And if Douglas Costa is playing, I am fully behind the LA Galaxy win. If he doesn't, I wonder where the goals come from. And I worry about the fill-ins for Caligari. I worry about the fill-ins. I mean, Aude is going to do fine. I like Aude.
Yeah.
He's just a different player than Raheem Edwards, and that's fine.
Not a steep drop.
Yeah, it is, but Aude's okay. I like him. He's
No, I'm saying it's not.
Oh,
it's
okay,
not
it's
a
not
steep drop.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. And I think they're very even in terms of the defensive side. In fact, I think Aude is a better defensive player. Aude just runs himself into the ground faster than Raheem Edwards, right?
Yeah.
And so you get that towards the end of the game that Aude trying to track back is a tough one.
Which, if you're trying to withstand the counter, I think Aude is maybe a better player in that situation because he's not going to be exposing the defense pressing forward as much as Raheem does. So it could be a positive, blessing in disguise.
We shall see. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to get to tonight? I think we had a pretty busy night.
It was, we went long today, but we had a good excuse. We had some special guests.
Right.
Chat was highly active, getting after it. So yeah, I think we're good. I got nothing else to share. I felt like we did all right.
And these guys don't even know that there was almost another guest on tonight, which
We were so close.
We were so close. So rain check on that one. We will get it, and it's a good one too. So we almost filled it up with two.
But again, you want to spread it out because then you don't want to go too hard your first time around. So
that's right.
We save some other guests for the other way around. But I said it went well, and I think the chat was pretty happy about it. But I can't wait for tomorrow for everyone to tell us everything that we did wrong. That's my favorite part.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part.
Oh man, we're just the softest interviewers ever, and blah blah blah, everything else. All right, big thank you to the LA Galaxy and Tom Braun for coming on. Thanks to Vicky Mercado, Kevin Acevedo, and the Galaxy's PR department for helping us out and getting all that stuff. Certainly appreciate it, and we're dead serious, by the way. If Tom just wants to save the phone number and call in whenever we say something stupid and he wants to come on, that sounds great. Because
And I'll say this: it is very easy for the LA Galaxy to say no and to not send a representative, especially on the week that he's announced, to come on and answer questions and to give opinions and kind of introduce himself to people who may not be familiar. It's very easy to say no. So the fact that he was willing to come on, willing to have the conversation, I think you need to give kudos to that, regardless of how you feel about the situation. You have to give someone standing in front of it. He said the words, seat is not your benefit. So for everyone who's been saying that since the last time you had a president on, and they repeated that line for a near decade, he came out and said the opposite. So, okay, maybe let's give a new soundbite. And I appreciate Tom coming on and the Galaxy for making him available.
Say hi to Tom this weekend whenever you're out there on Sunday. It's great that everybody's here in the chat room. Certainly appreciate it. Remember, live on Monday and Thursday nights. That's where you can find us, 8 p.m. right here. LA Galaxy coming up against St. Louis. That is a 5 p.m. TV start time on MLS Season Pass, 5:09 kickoff time on MLS Season Pass. This one's behind the paywall, so don't come complaining to me. All right, Eric, tell people where they can find you. Let's get on out of here.
All right, since Herb is not here, again, like the video on your way out. We got a lot of people in here. But as always, you can find me on everything at HammerEV9. That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and now Threads at HammerEV and the number 9.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast, at Galaxy Podcast on Threads. Cornerofthegalaxy.com is where you can find all of our videos, all of our stories, all that fun stuff is right there. Cornerofthegalaxy.com. Even some articles up there because, the need has been to write a little bit, which is always fun too. So check that out whenever you can. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast, you can find us. Just type in Corner of the Galaxy. All right, for Mr. Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. You guys have a great, great weekend. We'll catch you on Monday.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.